Okay, all right. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We are back. We are going to be continuing on with our look at the triennial Torah portion. We took a little break for the feast. We're back. We're looking at Bereshit, Genesis. We're going to be looking at the last few verses of chapter 3 and also chapter 4, dealing with some things, looking to see what we can find in there. Depending on, we got Romans 3 as well. I don't know if we're going to get to that, see how time permits. We get through the Torah portion, maybe we'll hit Romans 3. We'll see how time permits. Okay, so I'm going to pull up these slides here, and we will get into let me see here. There we go. Okay. All right. So we are looking at Hain Ha-Adam, which is behold the man. Behold the man. Again, we looked at week before last, we looked at Genesis chapters 3. We looked at 2 and 3, I think. But here we're going to deal with the banishment and also chapter 4. So you got your you got the scriptures version?
Yeah.
All right, pull up Genesis 3:22 and 24.
Genesis 3, what?
22 and 24.
You want to read it?
Yeah, loud. Nice and loud.
And Yah Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So Yah Elohim sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. And he drove the man out, and he placed cherubims at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the tree of life.
Okay, very good. So, behold the man. Behold the man. Hain Ha-Adam. We were following along with our Hebrew class. You could read that right there. Hain Ha-Adam. Right? Behold the man. All right, so Hain is like, I guess we don't really talk like this anymore. Lo, behold, like. But this word kind of expresses surprise. Maybe we probably dropped the L and added a Y right there. You know how we would like, yo. I said that to the neighbor today. I didn't even just came out like, no, it was hey. I said hey. She was saying hi. I said hey. Just like a exclamation kind of a thing, right? So behold is doing that also. But there's another thing that I think that this behold is doing that we'll see as we go through this. besides just expressing excitement, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's see what. Okay, so this is, I don't know if everybody can see that or not. This is a very interesting group of verses. For some reason, I'm saying for some reason, but we're going to talk about the reason. I feel like there is a bit of sarcasm present with these verses. Not necessarily in the behold part, but in what comes after. Where it says, behold, the man has become like us, right? Like one of us, it says. Okay, so there is an obvious restriction mentioned, but the why doesn't seem to make sense, at least on the surface, in terms of that verse where it says the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil, and now lest he stretch forth his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the restriction is the fact of not being able to eat from that tree of life. But the why is because of the fact that you have become like one of us. That's our dilemma, I'm saying, this idea of becoming like one of us. You know, as it says right there. As if to say that the tree of knowledge and good and evil is the thing that did that.
Right.
The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the thing that caused Adam and Hava to become like us. This is what we're questioning here. Before we go any further, does anybody have any thoughts about the fact that, you know, what we're looking at in terms of we see Adam and Hava, they're about to get kicked out of the garden, right?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot eat from the tree of life because of the fact knowing good and evil now, and the fact that you have become like one of us. So I'm saying, is it the tree that made them become like one of us? Is it the tree that made them become like one of us?
Knowledge is.
You saying knowledge made them become like one of us?
Awareness does not know.
They have the knowledge of good and evil, it seems.
Prior to that, they didn't. Prior to that, they didn't even know, just like he said, they didn't even know they were naked. Now you have the knowledge to know the difference between that, like you have a different mindset now because you're made aware.
Yeah. I remember when we talked about this before. We talked about that awareness and its place in terms of becoming aware of options and things outside of the will of the Father, right? You typically don't show your kids all of the bad things that you don't want them to do. You more so show them the good things that you do want them to do. So it's kind of like they have a knowledge of good, but not so much a knowledge of evil.
Was that the first?
What was the first sin?
From the tree?
You say what you mean by committed?
Or punished, committed.
Yeah, committed. Yeah. Well, it seems like it was, right? It seems like it was. It was said not to do it, and then they just went ahead and did it. So, there was, it's obvious disobedience.
So was that the first sin?
I think it was the first sin. The act. One thing we did talk about was this tree I don't know if we had any conclusions in regards to was it an actual tree? What was it? Um, I think the idea was it that you have. I think the thing that can be agreed upon is there's a thing that you're forbidden to partake of. Whatever that thing is, right? If it's a tree, if it's real fruit, if it's whatever it is.
One of the graph on YouTube was asking, was that act of eating the fruit that caused them to be like one of us, not the thing or the tree?
Okay, right. So that's where that's what I'm thinking about in terms of we know that the act of disobedience is there, right? But I'm thinking about this idea of how the man has become like one of us, because that's included in this thing uh of partaking of this tree. Not only do you have the knowledge of good and evil, but this is put into that verse there, right? Behold, the man has become like one of us, as if to say the knowledge of good and evil is the thing that made him be like one of us. Both what? Oh, you saying we already had both knowledge of good and evil?
I mean, because the statement isn't Adam. It's not being the statement's being made about Adam. It's not. It, the statement is being made that now that they've committed this sin, and they committed this act. Now they have the knowledge of good and evil. Now they're like one of us. So it's not. It's basically Adam and Eve are like Most High and Yeshua. Not like they're like man now, like us as in me and you, because the knowledge that they now have is knowledge that they wouldn't have had. The only people who would have had that knowledge would have been the Most High and the angels.
The knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
I think somewhere, I didn't memorize the scripture, I was like, where it's written, like, it's later on, I don't remember the scripture, I wish I would have, but he's, the Most High said that he is like not like he created evil, I don't want to get it wrong, but it was, because he's a creator of all, he allows, like, certain things that happen, it doesn't, like, he has the final say, so even when it comes down to the murder, he has the final say, so allowing this person to even commit this murder, he's above Satan, so.
Satan got to get permission.
Right, so he was already fully aware of it.
Oh, you saying the Most High one?
So
Yeah.
so he's fully aware of it, we weren't.
Right.
And so was Satan.
Right.
You know what I mean? So were the angels. They already had this knowledge. So that's what I'm saying. When it says that now he's like, man has become like one of us, now he has the information that we had, that we didn't want him to have, because like you said, you don't want your child in the bad. You want to show him the good. So now the Most High was basically saying, yo, don't touch this because you don't need that. And as long as you stick with right, you're going to be good. And that's where the devil came in like, oh, so you're getting loud, daddy said you can't do this. You know what I mean? That peer pressure, oh, you ain't loud out. You can't come down the block. You can't come around the corner with us. Or you can't get in this car with us. It's the same thing, you know what I mean? Like, basically the Most High was like, yo, don't leave the porch. I'll see you when I get back. And the dog was like, all right, cool, I don't gotta get off the porch. And here comes Satan messing with her, like, so your dad says I can't come off the porch? And what's gonna happen if I come off the porch? He's not even around. And she was like, you're right. I'm leaving the porch. And she left the porch and she stepped off and she was like, see, nothing happened. And Adam was like, all right, well, if nothing happened, I'm gonna step off too. And he stepped off and he came, Most High came back and was like, I told you, you weren't supposed to be out here because you don't need to see what happens when you get off the porch. But now that you done did it, you're like the rest of us. Now you gotta suffer the consequences of knowing both. Knowing what's going on, yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's keep on going then. Okay, so read.
She said she can't really hear us going in and out.
Oh, is it? It's probably the Wi-Fi.
You barely get 5 megabits up, so that's the minimum we need to stream.
Yeah.
If anybody else is.
We gotta speak up.
No, it's not.
It's not the sound, it's the connection.
Yeah. Yeah, the live might not work. You might just have to record it and yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, so that just means people need to just okay,
that was the
so
reason they got kicked out the garden, actually.
you saying what? What?
Because so they wouldn't eat from the tree.
From the tree of life.
Right.
Right.
And it wasn't the actual sin. It was them, not eating from the tree of life.
Well, it was probably a mixture of both.
Mixture of both, but after he slew the animal and gave them garments, then he kicked them out so that they will not eat from the tree of life. He say again. Again.
Yeah.
You're right.
Because we already went down that path.
Well, the tree of
Yeah,
life.
man.
Well,
Right.
The tree like you got the
the-
tree of knowledge.
yeah, the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
So I guess we won't touch this.
Yeah.
And you know what? Another thing that was real intriguing to me is that Adam and Chavo, they sewed fig leaves to cover their nakedness, right? But that didn't do no justice at all. So there was a slaughtering of an animal, blood being spilled to cover sin. You understand? That's a provision. That's a provision of what's yet to come. But Yeshua dying for us and our sins. As it just hit me just now, that blood had to be shed in order to cover such sin. So he did it himself. They didn't do it. He did it himself. And then he made garments for them. Here, put this on. Yeah, when your little son and your daughter and stuff are young, and they call themselves dressing themselves, and they come downstairs, and you say, "What the heck you got on? Hitsky, take that stuff off. Dress up. Put something nice on him." That's presentable. So to be suitable. So that's what y'all did to them. Gave them something that was presentable and suitable that was, appeasing him. So that's a provision of what's yet to come. That's all I wanted to say. It just hit me.
Here, read this verse right here.
This one.
Mhm.
Become like us. And Elohim said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heaven, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over all the creeping creatures that creep on the ground." And Elohim created the man in his image. Let me say it again. And Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Male and female, he created them.
Okay, very good. So when we look at this, right, thinking about the fact that this knowledge of good and evil caused Adam and Hava to become like one of us, except for the fact that they was created already like us from creation, though.
You know what? Another thing I want to touch on.
Hold,
man.
hold on,
Sorry,
hold
I
on.
went too finish.
Yeah, hold on a second. Because if we look at created in his,
Image.
what was the first one? Image was
Image.
first, right?
Yeah.
Image, that word there is a masculine noun meaning image, a likeness, a statue, a model, a drawing, a shadow. The word means image or likeness, as kind of carries both meanings there, right? Its most celebrated theological and anthropological use was to depict human beings as made in Elohim's own image, right? So the point of man to begin with was to make them in the image
Of y'all.
of the Almighty
That's right.
from the beginning.
Right.
So how you just becoming that just from this?
Well, it's like what we was talking about the other week, when it's eating from the light first before the knowledge. Who's to say he was never gonna let them eat that fruit? We will never know that because it didn't happen. They didn't follow what they were told. They would have followed the order, that the steps that he possibly the knowledge would have came for that, since we were made initially to begin with like that.
That's right.
Yeah, and we talked about that because again, we think about the idea of raising children. You know, at some point they got to go out, and at some point they had to experience evil. As you know, but you want to kind of inundate them with good first, right? So we were talking about how you know, they probably, if you was going to say how there was going to be an order potentially, then they probably should have ate from the tree of life first and then got the knowledge of good and evil after the fact. But since they did it in reverse,
That completed though.
say it again.
First made them, was they complete then, or did they get complete after they ate the tree of knowledge?
You saying completed. What you mean by that?
If we were made in his image, that means that we have knowledge that he has, right?
Well,
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Because you figure if like my kids look like me. When they were born, they didn't have the knowledge that I had.
Is that a part of the image though? The knowledge you have?
well,
You said image though.
the Most High don't got like legs and arms though, right? Like he can't be contained, like right? He can't be contained. We have Yeshua as the image of the invisible Elohim. Yeshua is the image of the invisible Elohim, right? But if you think about Elohim in his fullness, it's not about arms and legs and like that. So you know, there's that. We could say, well, you know, we physically look like the Almighty. And maybe is that what he's trying to get us to see in terms of being created in his image, that we just look like him, or is it more than?
I think it's more than that.
But talk up though.
When I think of the image, I think of like a collective thing. Like, you know, we have the spirit of the Most High's, doesn't have a body, so we have the spirit. But then he said, "Let us make man in our image." So I think you have a different looks in that art.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so I think
Aura.
we're a collective of all of that.
Of the beings. You know what? When I get out of that,
Beings?
I just said beings, but you're exactly right, because what I get out of it is, I can stand right here as O'Day, right? But if I go around that wall, you don't see O'Day no more. You just hear my voice if I'm speaking, because that's the active force of O'Day, and the actual tone, you know, the audio that's coming out of me. You can hear me, but when I step into this room, my word is flesh. You understand? So yeah, we created in that image. I look back on Yeshua as being the word of Yah that became flesh. You know, and as the scripture tells us, all things was made through the word. You know, but the word became flesh. John 1:14. So I apply that to us too, man. You know, but another thing I want to say before you move on is about that garden and the eating of the tree of knowledge. It was people who failed to realize it was two trees in there, of course, but they don't understand the real purpose of them leaving, so that they can't eat from the tree of life. Why? So they would live forever in sin. You get it? They won't live forever in sin, because he already told them, surely this day you will die, you know, but not immediately. Spiritually, they might have, you know, shortly. So they was banned from there, so they can't eat from the tree of knowledge, tree of life. So that apparently shows that y'all was like, hold up, man, they became like us. A little worrying. Well, let's get rid of them. let's get rid of them so they won't eat of this tree and live forever, because I had already punished them. But if they eat of this tree, they live forever. That's why the cherubim with a flaming sword swinging from every angle. Can you imagine that? Every angle, protecting it. You know, I just wanted to just point that out.
You said somebody had a question.
And Monica Brown, she says it's more than just looking. It is the character of Elohim slash Yeshua that we are supposed to take on.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that's good. And I think Chris was also hitting on that in terms of it being like we look at this whole image thing, and even in the definition, like a statue, like I can build a thing that looks exactly like me, like a robot or some clay or something that's in my image. But it's definitely more than the kind of physical image, right? That we that we
Different from flesh and mind. That we, flesh that we have.
well,
I think that we're still making our image.
yeah.
I believe that we do have some of their characteristics, most color, whatnot, but the body part is holy and spiritual.
Yeah.
I think, you know what I mean? His image is, we're made in his image, but I like that.
You'll get it. Hold on.
Glory and stuff. We don't have that.
We don't have the glory, right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't even stay in front of him in this life.
Right, because it's corrupted.
He would, it's violent,
Right.
you know, so.
But it's obviously we created
Hold on,
his
let
image.
Monet go.
Oh, Monet, go
I
ahead.
can't say exactly, you know what I mean, that he's shaped like this,
Yeah.
like that.
He can be.
You know? No, I was just going to add on, I really like the whole comparison of the image stuff to the parenting versus children, because, when I, comparing, like, when I have, more children, they're going to be fed, like the image that I'm in right now, as far as my character, they're going to be fed totally different than, the different things that my daughter had experienced and seen that were wicked naturally, because it's what she was showed. I'm in a whole different image at this point. I'm going to be bringing up my next era straight into this image. So, it just, that's the way I like to look at it, like when the character's back.
Yeah.
It's just, it would have made choices, once you're fed so much, once those different decisions and different distractions come in, you'll already know how to handle it. That doesn't mean that you'll always make the right, choice, but it makes it a lot easier. Already fed so much in them.
Yeah. You have to take it to another level and not just think about the kind of physical characteristics. It's not that. That's not what that is in terms of being created in his image. Like it's got to be that internal kind of makeup kind of a thing. Like how we have a will. Like we desire things, right? We have these, those kind of internal things of mind. We create, right? There's no, I don't think there's any greater way that we exhibit the character of the Almighty. That's nothing that's greater than when we create something. We just sit down and just create something, just out of nothing, just some paper and some whatever, like just putting some stuff together and making stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's you operating in the image of the Creator. You sit up there and create things.
You heard what he said about Nimrod.
You said when?
It's not mentioned.
Yeah,
It doesn't mention it. Genesis. So as we go down,
I think that whenever if I feel like they have to be lumped into verse 1 just as a general, like after verse 1 where it talks about the creation of it's really everything that pertains to earth, really.
Mhm.
But it don't talk about the heavens unless you talk about maybe the firmament.
Firmament.
You know what I mean? It don't talk about that. But now you have this, you have to wonder, Nakash, what is that? It's not just a regular old animal that's walking around. And then when you look in, I think what is it, Ezekiel, where it talks about the, let me,
Ezekiel.
what is it, 27 or 14? Let me look it up.
You got to think. I'm talking, it's created after our image. But you know why you're looking for that? I want to say real quick that I had a conversation with quite a few people who thinks it's very impossible that Yahweh came down here and walked the earth. I'm like, why would you discredit the power that he has and his capabilities? He created us in his image. He could take on whatever he wanted to do. He could do whatever he wanted to do. I said, it tells you in the scripture how he walked with Adam in the cool of the evening in the Garden of Eden. Then you got Melchizedek, who had no beginning or end, no mother, no father. And he come from Moses. Then you got, they say, the angel of Yah, who wrestled with Jacob. But guess what? This particular angel had the authority and power to bless him and change his name. You understand? So those are little instances. The Bible ain't gonna say, oh, well, y'all walked this earth 6 times. It's not gonna say that. But with a keen mind and being led by the Ruach, it's obviously you could see that it had happened. But there was a different timing for it. The actual timing of coming to be a sacrifice for sins was not yet. So that was another timing and event that took place.
You saying us is the angels? That's what you saying us is the angels?
Us?
You said when they created because.
Well, I know what the question was that he had, but I'm trying to say
Where
what
you
you
getting at? Where you getting at, man? Cut to the check.
I know, but what I'm saying to us though is you saying is the angels.
Right, included in the.
That's part of the us
Where it says, let's make
in our image. You saying our is
So you think he was talking to the angel?
He said when they're greater or what they included in that hour. And I'm glad he asked that because my daughter asked me, we do devotion. This is what happens when you give knowledge before life. This is what I deal with. So she believes everything that she's getting taught and still what she says. Well, where the angels come? They just who is God's man? That's what she asked me, like he just put that in there. You know, these are all questions that people that if been given, because the man will rivers now. That's what after they ate, once they got that knowledge, now mankind has the mind to think and wonder, oh, where's this come from? And that's, you know, like it's, I never did answer the right way.
That is a good question.
Know how to answer.
I never thought about including the angels in the hour.
Yeah.
I don't know that you have to have the answer of when to know if they're included in the hour, though. I wouldn't say that they're included in the hour. I don't create in our image.
Right.
I've heard people talk about those things, and then you even said beings, where people talk about these heavenly hosts and all of this.
It says they become like us. What talking about what? Knowing good and evil. Now, in the spiritual realm, they got Gabriel, Raphael, and all those are the archangels.
Yeah, the angels.
They don't. Even Satan doesn't go against the Most High in that realm. So it's like complete order. So it's like when you get to this realm in the third dimension, and you got choices. They don't make them. They just take orders up there. They go to the Most High and say, okay, do this and that. You don't see no instance necessarily in the scriptures. I mean, that talks about the angels fighting against Satan's angels and all that. That's a whole other topic, but you see order in that realm of the Most High, that spiritual realm.
Mhm.
I don't believe they don't fight. They don't fight up there. I think the fights take place here. Like, well, that's a whole other topic.
But okay, but I'm trying to just understand what I'm trying to understand what you trying to say because I'm not clear on.
I'm trying to say that
You saying that the us, or you saying that the us in the hour is the angels? Is that what you're proposing?
that's how I would look at it.
But how can,
Why would it be singular? If it's just God is creating everything, there'd be no reason to entertain and say Elohim and say Yahweh and go and entertain it. It's just all the way through.
we know Yeshua was with him.
Well,
Well, we know Yeshua was
hold
with
on.
him.
What?
That was his only creation. And I feel that's when he created the angels along with him.
It never goes in detail about that. That's something about
Like,
scripture.
just going by
Because then we only got to go by speculation and assumptions. And you don't really want to go there because we might go in error. So we just got to work with what was given to us. Pretty much.
I think, we as humans and finite beings try to, just go into the godly realm and his realm, and we want to know everything that's going on. Right. We ain't gonna know it. You know what I mean? We all know it. Right?
Yeah.
Each of us have a little piece. And I think, trying to go where we have to start guessing leads to, sentience. Right.
It's funny you said that.
Get, a little spooky.
Little spooky, yeah. Make you go crazy.
But that's why he says it's
Yep,
your ways,
yep.
not my ways.
Your ways are not my way.
We'll never, I think because we get into conversations like this, because there is no definite answer to what we're looking for.
It's not explicit. Yeah.
We do that. We're getting a look, and I think that his whole thing is you don't need to be looking into that matter. What does it, not to disregard your question, but what does it impact what you're looking for, we're reading? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, it's not going to change, or it should change, or dictate your thought process going forward, dealing with what I have given.
Right.
Just deal with the matter that I was given you for what it is, and stop trying to create something other than what I've already created.
Yeah, before you right. That's the problem with being stiff-necked. It's not actually just sinning and transgressions, but just as Adam and Chava was kicked out of the garden of Eden, so because they ate from the tree of knowledge once, guess what we do? We still try to eat from the tree of knowledge. Because I look at technology as the same. Technology is like power without the authorization of God. Look at what they're doing today, trying, like you said, search the heavenly realms and create these vortex and wormholes and all that stuff. Man, that's crazy. Think about it.
Second thing I did want to say though is, remember, I think it was John's dad, I think, where the angel came to give him a message and he bowed down.
Oh, Zechariah?
And the angel told him not to do that.
Yeah.
He said, I am the servant.
Oh, that's in Revelation.
Yeah,
That's in
yeah.
Revelation. Yeah.
Don't do that.
It makes that comparison like the angel, like, I'm like you, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, to me, you know what I mean? So you kind of see those similarities, right? Where, even though they're on another plane, but we have similarities.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think the difference seems to be that, like John talking about the angels and the order in terms of they basically are doing what they're told to do, where we're kind of on another level where we're kind of like, do I want to do that? weighing it like,
Yeah.
is that the best thing that I should be doing?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like we have this thing that we do that's really different. Like if you put us into that arena, then we're all the way wrong, right? If if the angels, the messengers of the Almighty, are questioning the orders,
Mhm.
right? That's it for them, right? But we have all of this kind of leeway.
Was it always gonna be like that if we wouldn't have ate from that knowledge?
I don't know that. I don't know that.
Those are things we just don't know. Yeah.
Because of what happened.
I'll tell you what, you can ask him when you see him.
You wanna give us that knowledge?
Yeah, you'll see. Yeah. Okay, so looking back at this, right? If we think about the image and the likeness, it's really looking at different words, but they're kind of interchangeable in terms of their definitions, in terms of what they're giving you. Like this other one, this the word that's translated as likeness, resemblance, model, shape, like, fashion, manner, similitude. Again, is giving you these things where you thinking about like a physical shape. But again, the thing that really causes us to be in the likeness or the image of Elohim is probably more so the internal things, the character, the intellect, your will and desire and things of that nature, which you have all of those things. You're created with all of those things. So when we think about this idea of again, what I was getting at in terms of becoming like Elohim, when we was already created in his likeness and in his image, like he used these two different words that are giving you basically the same understandings, probably building on intensifying this idea of how we were already made to be like Elohim. And then you go and do this thing that I told you not to do, and that thing made you like me.
Yeah.
So when the Most High created Adam, he already made man like him and in his image. He already did that. So what are we missing here? What are we missing here? Because when they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, like it says up there when we read the beginning, behold, the man has become like us, knowing good and evil. And now, so on and so forth, right? Okay, so this is the Hebrew. When we look at this in the Hebrew, here, let's see, this says what, Vayamar, Yahweh, Elohim, Cain, Ha'adam, Haya, become. Okay, so here's this. This is it right here. Lo, or behold, which is this right here, Cain, the man, behold, the man be or exists. That's Haya. Ke achad, like one, and this is of us over here. So this word is they didn't even use one of those other words that we just looked at in terms of image or likeness. They just put this prefix here, this kaf, this prefix, which gives you the same idea as like. Neither one of those words that we looked at, that selem or dam ut, those words that's image or likeness, neither one of those words were used whenever it talks about the fact that where it says you became like one of us. It just put that prefix on, which is another way of really saying the same thing of this likeness. But the thing that I was thinking about in terms of, going back all the way to the beginning in terms of this whole idea of how these things are being said. Can we think, just backtracking one there, it says like one of us, like a cod, like one of us. Can we think that the Most High is he mocking man, Adam, in his choice right there of going and following after that the tempting of Nakash? Because when we look, I'm saying that he was already in the image of Almighty from the beginning. He was already there. He was created in his image and in his likeness. The thing that he did, it didn't change how the man was made. It didn't change it. So I always just think about, like, our children. They have some great idea. They go out and they make their decisions that they make. When little DJ becomes a little man, he gonna go out and he gonna do something that's gonna feel real manly to him while he doing it to him, and then you gonna look at him probably and say, you a man. So you a man then, right? Right. So I really feel like I really, and this is just my thoughts on the matter. This is why I'm looking at it. I really feel like the Most High is really doing that when he's talking to Adam here. Behold, right? This is what the lie was to begin with. He knows if you eat that Nakash, he knows if you eat that, you're gonna become like them, right? And then they do it, and then now they going back to the Almighty, and he's like, so now where you at? Where did that get you? What? Right, right, yeah. How far did these decisions that you wanted to make, how far did they get you? And the only reason why I'm saying that is because the fact that the knowledge of good and evil isn't the thing that made them be like one of us, because they was created in his image already.
So you didn't need that to become like him. You already are like him. You just didn't know everything that he knew. That he knows what you're doing.
And still didn't.
Right.
And still didn't.
You're still in the same boat.
You're right. It didn't change anything.
Which is why it's a perfect analogy to talk about father or mother and child, because it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, the kid goes into the kitchen to cook. You're like, why do I smell smoke? And you get down there and your child is still hungry, but you thought that you were being an adult, and now you're in trouble because you done burnt up my kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have been better off just waiting until I came down the steps before you. At least you wouldn't be hungry and in trouble. Which is be hungry.
Yeah. Okay, so I put the mechanical translation here where it just takes the words just how they are in Yahweh, which Elohim said, though the human had existed like one of us to discern function and dysfunction, and now otherwise he will send his hand and he will take also from the tree of life and he will eat and he will live to a distant time. He kind of just takes the words and just puts the word there without trying to make it be like a, a functional sentence. Oh, uh, yeah, just talk up. So I'm not.
Remember the story, Rebecca was pregnant and she had a child. The angel came to her, she was wondering why she was feeling this pain. And then the angel spoke and told her that she had twins in her womb. Explained how the older and Jacob was hanging on to his brother's heel. But he also explained what was foretold would happen. That the youngest would be head over the oldest. But like you said, she went when it wasn't going the way that she saw it. She went and overrided God's will and did something and then caused Jacob to be a thief, which is his name means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he would have got the blessing anyway, because that's what God ordained.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she went over and exceeded God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
And you now you did it. What did that get you? Now you got your son.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And prophet now. Now it's like we're not even brothers. It's like we're not even
Yeah.
brothers.
I think that's a perfect example because you thinking about a thing, the blessing was going to be his anyway. So it wasn't as if the thing in and of itself wasn't for him, but just how he went about getting it was wrong. And the same thing can be said about the knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge of good and evil in and of itself is just knowledge, right? But how you go about getting it, ascertaining it, the order of you acquiring it, I think, was the problem. Well, and the fact that he just said, "Don't do that."
Right, period.
Right. And there's that.
Him giving us free will, I don't think he wanted like to make us like robots. He wanted us to think, listen to what he said to do. That free will, I think our ancestors, he lives in his time. So they weren't patient. Grandma Sarah did the same thing. You know, instead of waiting, and they got impatient. And he's taking too long. We can't tell him when to do something. It was already planned.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
just think, and even right now today, we are still like that. We
Yeah.
pray to him for, well, not everybody, but some people pray for things, but if they're not getting it as quick as they think they should,
Mhm.
then they'll go another route
Yeah.
and it always backfires.
Right. I mean, and at the end of the day, that's wicked, though. You know what I mean? That's what a lot of people do, but that's wicked, right? We have to be able to be patient. We have to be able to get our little life uh, time clocks in line with the Almighty's. Right? We got to be able to do that. And we have all of these examples of it not being done, and we see what happens.
I just wanted to say, like, I went through a couple different phases. And sometimes, once you have been kind of redeemed and clean, then you start to look at the people who are just like you, who are just like you was when you was out there. I hate them. You know what I mean? You be praying for the Most High to come, like, come on now. You know what I mean? Like, the people that came while I was still in my sin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get checked. That's a growth thing. And he knows when you're going to be ready for whatever. He knows you more than you know yourself. So he knows when you're going to be able to handle whatever it is that you want and how you're going to be able to take care of whatever it is. We don't know that. Our timing.
Yeah.
It's not his time.
But
Yeah.
shouldn't we pray for our brothers and sisters?
I mean,
Like where we were.
But not only that, and then you also go and try to go get them too, though.
right. You can't, and that's what I was saying before. We can't completely seclude ourselves from those people because, like you said, if he came when we were in our sin, we'd be done. So now at this point, with the change that who we are now, you have no choice but to be around those people so that they can see the change in you.
Yeah.
So they can see how he worked through you. So they can always be like, and the fear that a lot of us have is, I don't want them to be saying, well, you used to be. Yeah, I used to be that. The key word is used. You know what I mean? I'm not him anymore. So now you can see I'm not him. And you can see what he has done in me. So you should have that one. Like O'Day say all the time, people tell him, they can do that to you. You know what I mean? Me too. Like, yeah, you're right. You too. Let's go. Come on, get on board. But it's a change that they gotta be willing to make. You know what I mean? Like you can't force feed it to people, but you still gotta drop those seeds. You still gotta plant that seed, and somebody else will come along and water it. You know what I mean? Then he will make it what he wants to make out of it. But you can't sit back and be like, oh, well, I ain't gonna be around them because they doing this and that. You was doing this, and that, and somebody came to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think the patience and long suffering on the other side comes into not being so frustrated with whoever it is that you trying to bring along that it causes you just be like, man, just forget them.
Right.
They'll get it whenever they get it. Because that could be, your impatience, right? Maybe you're not going as hard on a particular one, but it is important to have, especially when what we're looking at, what we're talking about in terms of getting things when you're supposed to get them, right? So if I have these acquaintances who I can't escape, right? I see you. I can't escape, right? Am I going to just not talk to them about righteousness at all? Or I don't think we can't take it to that place, right? And sometimes because of frustration and stiff-neckedness, we might just be like, well, I'm done. I ain't going there with him about that. Right. I'm saying in terms of people who you deal with, like that you can't escape. Like it's one thing to say, well, I'm gonna go over here and talk to those people and see what happens. But when it's with people who you can't escape, you always have to be that light. And it might not be you that brings them, but it shouldn't be you. It shouldn't be you that turns them off, though. Right? We gotta be able to be like constant in our flow, so that if it ain't us, it won't be like in spite of us, right? They can look and see what is shown in you and someone else and be like, that be a witness, like, right? But patience, patience is key. And when we get outside of that, it always goes wrong. Okay, so what was you gonna say?
No, I was going to ask, because my spirit becomes like, it be kind of hard for me when it comes to like, I'm just going to use recent, like a holiday. Like my family partakes in that. I don't be wanting to bring like.
Oh, you mean like secular holidays?
Yeah, yes. I just think that it's in contrary to what I'm trying to deprogram my child with. So it's not like, that's not
No, that's.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't wanna be, because my thing is, even though I'm not celebrating, me being in this surrounding, this is what you guys are.
Right.
You guys celebrate, you got Easter eggs all over the place.
Yeah.
This is your thing. I don't wanna be in that atmosphere.
Yeah, right then. But just don't be done with them forever. Just not at that time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, since I came into, I don't even go to my grandma's house during any, like, not going that week before. I honestly like go about 2 to 3 weeks after Christmas to go see my grandma.
Yeah.
Like, cause I'm not coming over there. Like, when I first got into this, I was still different, you know what I mean, dad. So like, the last straw was Easter. Like, we live on the south side, my grandma lived in Staten Heights. You know what I mean? So it's not no right around the corner ride. I don't go, you already know that I stopped eating pork and eggs. So I'm like, all right, well, what y'all have? She was like, it'll be good. You know what I mean? Come on and get you something. I'm like, all right, cool. I travel all the way to Staten Heights. You got a ham, you got greens with ham in it. I'm like, I had to travel all the way over.
Yeah.
And I can't eat none of this. I turn around and walk back out the door. Like, all right, that's just him showing me you shouldn't have been there no way.
Yeah. At that time. At that time. Yeah. 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 Yeah, you can't. I don't know how you do. I mean, you might as well be celebrating it.
Right.
And it's a prime example of what I experienced. I'm telling I'm the only kid, and all my cousins got costumes on. I used to hate my upbringing. Like, my family, they're all for it. My grandma goes all out for this. And like, and I just don't want this distraction. And I have a child involved. She's already battling with like things going down on the weekends. That's no longer, she can no longer cheerlead for the football team. So she don't care about material stuff. She never was big on holidays anyway. But that was her thing.
I mean, we got way more holidays than them anyway.
And way better.
Way better. Way better. Oh my goodness. It's no comparison to those little holidays.
Like, the Feast of Unleavened Bread and Passover, right? You got 7 days of feast.
Oh my goodness. It's just all over the place. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard for young people. It just is, because young people really the most influence ain't you. It's them friends that they got. They got the most influence. It's them friends. It don't matter what you say, right or wrong. They got more influence. It's that little bonding thing that happens with young people. It's just it's unexplainable.
It's sad that in our culture, like, we got this cookie cutter mindset of how we're supposed to be. Like, everybody gotta be the same way. Like, you gotta talk the same way. You gotta sing the same way. You gotta do everything the same way. If you try to do anything different, now they go in there. They go like,
Like, you're the problem.
Yeah.
Like, but it's crazy because, like, when we were little, I was talking to somebody. When we were coming up, we didn't want to be like everybody. You know what I mean? You wanted to have a different, let me have some different shoes. Let me have a different shirt. Now, everybody got to have the exact same thing. Like, where's the separation? Where's the individuality? Like, it's all gone. Like, which makes this so much perfect because it's like, I ain't supposed to be like them no way.
It's coming, well, if you notice, like, it's coming more and more to that satanic one way of life, right? That one way, that's where we're at. We're like in that mode where you're taking that mark, everybody is behaving the same with that mark. So it's becoming more and more clear that it's headed towards the end.
And me and Tirsa was talking about how things that were, so prior to me coming into the truth, I was just saying I had to go get my tattoos recolored. I'm like, yeah, this was like probably like early January. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting some new tattoos. I'm getting my ones recolored. So now that I am where I am, I can't stand them. So somebody had complimented me on them. I'm like, I can't stand these. I wish I could pull them off, but I was explaining that to Tirsa, and she was like making a comment on the fact that things that were once looked at as wrong, the advertisement of it now, especially to the youth, it's kind of like how Satan made the fruit look like now all of a sudden trees. Like it's clearly a lab, like everything. You got doctors with tattoos all over. You got when you talk about how kids are being dressed, when you go into the I used to shop for her in Justice. That's a kid's store for strictly girls. They got lace on the pants. Lace. The biggest size is like a size is for like a chubbier kid, like an 18 in kids. But this is a strictly kid store, nothing for adults. This is a little girl store that starts from the age of 6 up. They're implementing stuff like that. They're implementing camis with the matching little big shorts.
I don't know what
for
that is.
children, for kids, for someone size 8. You know what I mean? So it's definitely that big.
So when you think about all of those things, and I mean there has to be a degree of separation, but it can't be total isolation because we have to be able to be a light. But there definitely has to be a degree of separation. It's just necessary. And when you think about it in terms of this whole thing that we talking about in terms of these trees, you know, and we talked about this before, you know, we have to, okay, if we think about the tree of life, obviously, you know, we think about Messiah, right? We have to be able to fill our lives so much with righteousness that being affectors instead of being affected by the world that's out there, right? Because if you don't have that balance, if you don't got like a surplus, a Messiah up in you when you going out here and dealing with these, you got to go out and deal with the world. There's no way around it. You must do it. You can't get around it. But if you don't got that surplus of righteousness just bubbling up inside of you, it's going to overtake you every time. Right? So you got to have that. You got to get full off that tree of life first before you go over here and mess with this other thing that's not wicked in and of itself. But when you have something and you partake of things inordinately out of order, that in and of itself, we look at sin like adultery or idolatry, coveting. Coveting is in and of itself is not wicked. What makes it wicked when I covet somebody else's stuff? I can strongly desire a thing. That's all coveting is. I can strongly desire a thing, but I can't strongly desire John's thing, right? So I'm taking something that's neutral and I'm perverting it, right? So when I have that balance, when I say balance, when I have Messiah, like in surplus, right? In my situation, righteousness just bubbling over, right? Now I'm able to keep these things in balance, right? So everything that there's things that we have to steer away from that in and of themselves is not wicked. The thing ain't wicked, but how we're doing it, just are we doing it in right order or not? You know, that makes it wicked, right? Okay, so let's look over here at the next part of this in terms of these being driven out. We read this verse already. Elohim sent him out of the garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken, and he drove the man out, and he placed these cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and with the flaming sword, which turned every way to guard the way of the tree of life. Okay, I want to talk about this a little bit. And he placed the cherubim at the east of the garden to guard the way of the tree of life. So read Here, read this right here. Read Exodus. You see that? This right here.
And make the dwelling place with 10 curtains of fine woven linen, and blue and purple and scarlet material. Make them with cherubim, the work of the skilled workman.
Okay, so when you looked at the tabernacle and the coverings and the veil specifically, the veil that separated you from the holy place, it had on it these cherubims embroidered into it, right? The thing that separated you from the presence was this veil with the cherubim on it, right? The cherubim was on the veil, the same ones who were separating Adam from Adam and Eve from the garden, right? I read this one too. 26.
And you shall make a veil of blue and purple and scarlet material, and fine woven linen, the work of skilled workmen, made with cherubim. And you shall put it on the 4 columns of acacia wood, sorry, overlaid with gold, their hooks of gold upon 4 socks of silver. And you shall hang the veil from the hooks, and shall bring the ark of the witness there behind the veil. And the veil shall make a separation for you between the set apart and the most set apart place. And you shall put the lid of atonement upon the ark of the witness in the most set apart place.
Okay, so the most holy place, the place where the tabernacle, where the Ark of the Covenant was, the place where the presence of the Most High came and dwelt on that lid, the mercy seat, had that veil there, but on the veil was these cherubims, right? We look at Matthew's, here, read this right. Matthew 27:51.
And see, the veil of the dwelling place was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth was shaken, and the rocks were split. I was just telling you.
So when Messiah died, when Yeshua died, and this thing happened, this veil was rent. The veil that had the cherubims that separated from the most holy place. You have this thing that's kind of it's really happening, but it's kind of metaphorical at the same time, right? It really did happen. The veil really did rip, right? But at the same time, we see through what Yeshua has done for us, he allows for his people to be able to be reconnected back to the Father, and restore that separation, that death that happened all the way back at the garden, right? Where we see the problem was, whatever the problem was, we could just say it was disobedience, right? Whether it's eating a tree, whatever it did, whenever you ate it, whatever. At the end of the day, it was really disobedience, right? And that disobedience, sin, the wages of sin are death.
Yeah.
The thing that you owe as a result of sin is death, right? There's a separation that occurs when, we act in disobedience, right? So we saw throughout, when we look at Israel throughout, that separation was built, and we see where the place, the Ark of the Covenant, even being placed inside of that, the tent inside the tent, right, was picturing separation, right? Where one man from a specific family one time a year could go inside of that place, right? Was able to make that connection. We look back at Moses in the wilderness. He went away and talked to the Most High and came back with the words from the Most High, right? There's a separation. Well, we call for the separation, but there was separation nonetheless, right? So we have this whole time of separation, and then even with the whole system that was set up with the tabernacle and the holy place and all that is all separation, right? And then we have with Yeshua what he came and did. This is connected back to what we see in the garden with this whole idea of this this moving out of the way of this separation. Hebrews, here, read this for Hebrews 14.
Therefore, since
14,
we
16.
have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Yeshua, the son of Elohim, let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who was tried in all respect as we are, apart from sin. Therefore, let us come boldly to the throne of favor in order to receive compassion and find favor for the timely help.
Okay, so in Messiah, we have available to us something that wasn't available when we look at what the system that was set up with the old covenant, and with the Levitical priesthood, with the tabernacle that was built with hands, right? Because of what we have in the Messiah, we're able to be reconnected to the Father, and we don't need to go through this specific man from a specific lineage in order to do so, right? So we see here, again, with what happened with Yeshua when he died and that veil being rent. Again, it was not only something that actually happened, but something that signifies something greater, which was, those that believe in Messiah being able to have access to the Father in a different way than what was available prior to that. Okay, so does anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments about this whole idea of the banishment of Adam and Hava from the garden, that separation, that death that occurred, the restoration of that that we find in Messiah before we go into chapter 4?
No, it was all spoken. Unless anyone has something to say on the 2, which I doubt.
Okay, let's see here. All right, let's read these verses here from Genesis chapter 4, 1 through 4.
Genesis chapter
Right
4,
here.
1 through 4. Is it on there?
Yes, right there.
Move it down, bro.
That's all it is right there.
And Adam knew Chawa, his wife, and she convinced and bore, what's that? Quam?
Oh, Cain.
Cain.
okay, and said, I have gained a man. Yah. And again, she gave birth to his brother, Hebel. And Hebel became a keeper of the sheep. But Cain became a tiller of the ground. And it came to be in the course of time that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Yah. And Hebel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And Yah looked to Hebel and his offering. Oh, that's Cain and Abel, if y'all didn't know.
Okay, 5 and 7. 5 and 7 says, but he did not look to Cain and his offering, and Cain was very wroth, and his face fell. And Yahweh said to Cain, why is he wroth towards you? And why is your face fallen? Is it not if you do good, you are to be accepted? And if you do not do good, towards the door is a sin. He is lying, and towards you is his desire, and you must rule over him. Okay, so it said, if you do well, if you do well, if you do well. If in the Hebrew is im, whether, conditional, or it's translated a lot of times as if, or even when it's translated as, right? Im. Look how close mother is to if. Aim, terms of letters, is exactly the same, right? Mother is aim. When I think about mother, right, you become a mother through this little process, which kind of is an if from the beginning, right? It's a process. Sometimes it don't go all the way to the end, right? It really is an if, right? Until that baby come out, you don't know whether that even then, right? You don't know what it's gonna be, right? So it's interesting, I think, that just to see the connection between this whole thing of if you do well, and a connection to motherhood, because motherhood gives you that good kind of thought process of this whole conditional kind of, because it's a whole conditional experience to even say whether or not you're going to even be a mother to begin with. Okay, but this question that is given to Cain, because when we see this whole thing with Cain and Abel, it wasn't it wasn't as if he just didn't have a choice to just do well, right? He's asked him right there, if you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? Right? You're able to do the thing that's good or well or pleasing. If you would just do that, right? But if you do not do well, it says sin is crouching at the door. And its desire is for you. Like it's talking about this sin thing, like it's back over there, like it's this animal that's just waiting for you to act, and it's just waiting, like in the cut, ready to pounce on you. Right?
So on just the layman terms of this statement, like if Cain would have just his own, like a flock that was firstborn and lost and that, he just came and brought that. That would have solved everything up in a.
It seems like that, right?
Right.
It seems like
Because then the evil's so now it's, instead of him thinking that way, it's like, wow. He like his,
He just took it all the way wrong. Like he just was totally, the situation in his mind was just totally unredeemable. Like you gonna take his thing over my thing. We kind of assume because it says that that Abel had the first fruits of his thing, and Cain just talks about him bringing something where it leaves that out. I think it's probably a safe assumption to say that, was the difference. That's the difference that you see when you look at it. But it's if that's the only thing, that's an easy fix. If you just do well, right?
Right.
But when you don't do well, sin is there crouching at the door. Sin builds on sin, right? If I'm feeling a way, if I feel a certain kind of way, that's going to cause my actions even to be different, right? And then the actions is I'm going to do some shady actions, and then things are just going to just snowball from there, right?
Right.
Get that from his mother.
I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know. It's not explicit.
I might not be right, but as we're reading along, the concept of the concept of what happened with, I'm gonna use two examples. So with the offering between Cain and Abel,
Mhm.
so you see a depiction already of a split between good and bad. So it seems that there is a choice, and you're needed to. It's either the good, you do good and follow as Elohim says, or if you leave open space, speculation in your mind, that bad will follow. So I think Cain didn't really care about the order of obeying. So he was already going down a negative path. But then when God didn't accept it, I think Elohim already knew in his mind what he was thinking. He didn't really care about giving the best. So I know it sounds crazy, but I think this is about choice. Did Elohim give Adam and Eve choice to make the right decision when he gave order? Or did he already know that they were going to make a wrong choice? So he wanted them to make a right choice, but they made the wrong choice, so he wanted to give them punishment.
No room to redeem yourself.
Right. But um, that loss of losing what he could have had, it might have opened another way of repentance.
Right.
And coming back. They needed to learn a lesson from the mistake.
Right.
So there's a positive and a negative. It still comes back to full circle.
Right.
Now, my example towards that, if you leave way to mistake, that negative energy comes back in full force and be a strong force, and then sin comes of hatred, which came to Abel because of jealousy. So now I'm going to go to the example of Rebecca with the twins. Jacob was going to end up being leader over Esau. But when Esau didn't get this blessing from him, he found out Jacob took it from him. Anger set in, but he never cared. Esau never cared about God's rules, or Jacob did. And that's why he was always better than Esau in one way. So God already led to Jacob because Jacob was the one for him, not Esau. But since Esau was a favorite in Isaac's eyes, he put aside Jacob in the way that God wanted to So in a way, it seems like time keeps repeating itself back to Adam and Eve and the wrong choice. So is it this because of choice? Is God are we looking for a true choice? Is he looking for love? Or because like you said, the angels were created to obey the Most High. Did some angels decide to make a choice? I'm not going to obey, and then they fell? Are we recycling the same cycle of the angels, or you have good angels that
I mean, well, I mean, when you think about it in terms of these decisions, right? I think that is what it is about. You know, we see here with Cain and Abel, there was a decision that he could have made, right? It was options. He had options. He wasn't just in the doghouse forever, right? We look right there where it says, if you do well. He had the opportunity to do something other than what he was already doing. But as you say, which is probably correct, he obviously didn't care, right? Yeah, actions, his actions showed, where his heart was at. But we have to be able to look at these things and learn from these things. I mean, it really is just about making the right decision, right?
Not reacting off your emotion. I just have to wait.
Emotions is gonna get you messed up every single time.
It's like that. I just looked up that word because I know what it is, but just I want to see the definition. It say that the aspect of consciousness, that's the A, and it goes into like a feeling is another one. But being conscious, and it's like a part of like that knowledge.
Well, being alive, but when you talk about emotions is really a reaction to something.
Right.
Like I see like a little baby, right, and it's cute, and I'm like, oh, look at the little baby, it's so cute. I'm looking at the baby, and then there's a response that I'm having based on the baby, right? But we can't function based off of emotions, right? He probably was basing off of emotions right here. He was feeling away because of which doesn't make any sense in the first place because he's wrong for just bringing whatever, but then he just brought whatever, and then the results of what he did that was wrong in the first place, it just builds on itself. But if we think about emotions, we can't live our lives in a reactionary way, right? Because if the Most High says, go down the street, turn, make two lefts, and then a right, that's what he said do. And I start going and I say, uh-oh, if I make this second left right here, it's going to jam me up. So I got to go right. Then you reacting to the situation, but the Most High said take two lefts and a right. You done messed up right there. We have to be intentional in our actions, right? With our righteousness, we have to be intentional. That's what the Torah is giving us, is instructions on how to live, right? When we go and we act according to reactions, that's going to always mess you up. If I'm supposed to deal with you in a certain way, and then you being who you are brings me outside of that, and then now I'm not able to deal with you the way that I know that I'm supposed to deal with you. Right, right. But if I'm just operating according to the laws of the Most High and how He wants for us to deal with each other, then it don't really matter how you dealing with me. It don't change what I'm doing. Right. Yes.
So as long as I live within that, I don't have to worry about being off or showing up with offering for him. It isn't quality.
Right. And then getting mad because it's not accepted.
I knew coming out, hey,
Right.
that this wasn't right to begin with. So
Mhm.
me being mad at him is basically me being mad at myself for being defiant.
Right. And then with the whole thing about sin crouching, it's sin begets sin. You was wrong from the door, but now because you were wrong and now you're reacting to your wrongness, it builds more. Right. So it's like a chain reaction thing that happens. And now you just get further and further away. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so here, what does it say here? Sin is crouching at the door, and its desire you must master. Okay, so the word desire most probably derives from an Arabic word which means to urge, drive, or impel. The Hebrew word for that's translated as desire is teshuka. Teshuka. Which means stretching out after or desire. You're reaching for this thing. You want this thing so bad, and you're grabbing. You're reaching out to grab it.
Reaching out to grab the sin.
Sin is crouching at the door, and its desire you must master. The sin you have to push back,
resist
against that thing that's stretching forth after you.
Yes.
But in us, it's your flesh.
Right, because the desire will grow if you don't do nothing about it.
Yeah, so it's your carnal mind.
Yeah,
right? Emotions is right in that carnal mind.
Right.
Is that I deserve this. I should have that. That feels good. I'll take two. Right?
Yeah.
That's you have to master that carnal mind, those desires, because those things are forever reaching up and grabbing you and urging you and driving you, trying to push you in a particular direction.
I experienced a confirmation of my own growth not too long ago, going through the wood, right? And young cat said some crazy stuff to me, But I was surprised at myself. When I left, I praised y'all the whole time. But I shocked myself because I didn't do as I would have done in the old me. Instead, I smiled at him, laughed with him. I said, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. Then of course, me, it was an opening to let him know who he was. And this is not right, et cetera, et cetera. And he wasn't really receptive to it, but it was mind-provoking. He was intrigued by it. And in other words, he wanted to know more, But as I walked away, that's what I was thinking about, man. I didn't entertain that simple desire, because the first one did pop up. Man, bust him. And I caught myself like, man, you crazy. man, shoot. Y'all looking at me, So the old me wouldn't have cared. Let me holler at you, man. Let's go in this alley for a second, That's the old me. I wouldn't even let desire increase. I would have jumped on the first train, first train smoking. But man, that scripture there is very powerful because it applies. We can use that daily. Daily, man, daily.
It's a daily part of your life.
Yes,
you're continually fighting against your flesh and your soulish desires.
Man, you gotta give me that song.
I never heard that.
Day, you're dealing with that.
Yeah, it is.
You're constantly fighting the old you. You don't want that. You gotta continuously repress who that was to continue to walk your righteousness.
Yeah, I told a very old foe who is happy that I changed. He was like, man, I'm happy you changed. You gave us the blue. I said, so did you. I said, but how can I continue to fight against my brothers when I'm trying to fight against myself?
Right.
There's a spiritual battle going on in myself. That's where my fight is at. I said, I can't focus on hurting my brothers. I'm trying to love my brothers, and I don't want my brothers trying to hurt me. I said, it's too much. And that's just the equivalent of everybody trying to outdo everybody. I'm just trying to outdo the old me. You know what I'm saying? Man, what you telling, man?
Yeah. So it's not too hard for us to try to think about these things, because these things happen inside of us every day. It might not be to the extreme where you're murdering someone, or your brother even, for that matter, but just for the simple fact of understanding that there is a chance for you to do right. And are you going to make that decision or not? Are you going to do those things which are pleasing to the Almighty, or are you going to do those things which are pleasing to your own carnal mind? Right? You got one decision that you got to make every day, and that's it right there. You're going to please the Most High, or you're going to please your carnal mind. And you can fit that into every situation, right? Right.
So as long as you live righteous, you're not going to want it.
Mm-hmm. So when we look over here with Cain, and we see this whole thing with this desire, where the root of that word is to overflow, to run after, or overflowing like water. Again, we can see that's literally what happens when we have any type of sin that's unchecked. It's not as if something could just, like, this little thing happen and then you just don't even worry about it. It's just going to get worse, right? It's just going to grow. It's just going to work like this word here in terms of this overflow, where it just builds on itself, and it just gets worse. Right. So we see that example here with Cain and Abel, where he ends up just literally killing his brother, and being punished as a result of it. Let's see here. This word here, desire, just used a few times in the scriptures. It's the same word that we see over in Genesis 3, verse 6, where it says the woman desires to rule over the man, but the man is commanded to rule with love over her. Same word over here, where sin desires to rule over us, but we are commanded to overcome it. Right? The same way he was instructed to it was brought to his attention that if he was to do well, it's the same thing we have with the scriptures, right? With the Torah. The Torah gives us is the knowledge of it gives you the knowledge of sin. It lets you know what the Most High likes and what he don't like. Right? So when we are able to look and understand what the Most High's character is, it gives us those boundaries and shows us where we need to have our situation be at. And when we allow sin, like I said, when we allow sin to creep in, we end up getting to a place where, sin just builds. You go from a place where you're trying to do the right thing, and then you might fall. And then in that falling place, maybe you just sin again, right? And then when you continue that, you end up in iniquity, right? Which is just a continuation of that, right? So we need to be able to, and then even thinking back to when we was talking about before with this whole veil and Yeshua and all of that, we're able to not be overtaken by sin in our situations, right? We're able to not allow sin and our soulish desires to overtake us in our life, right? That's the whole point of what Yeshua came to do for us in terms of allowing us to be able to actually be in the presence of the Almighty, where he's able to literally transform our characters and change our desires, right? We really have to get to a place where, you know, we're developing new struggles in life, right? If you just get the same old struggle over and over again, right, that's a problem, right? Because because you're just allowing that thing just to hang around instead of conquering it, right? And again, we look over here with Cain. You know, it could take you to a place. It might not be murder, but it could take you to a place that there's no coming back from, right? Sin can take you to a place that there's no return from. And we don't really think about these things all the way through, which is a problem, right? We're just thinking about just right now, right? Which is what, you know, we go back to the garden, just about just right now. I just want to taste this thing right now and just see what it's like. I'm not even thinking about the consequences of none of that, right? But when we think about built into the law, statutes, and commandments and judgments, right? There's the consequences. All that stuff's built in, right? And we just take it to life or death. Everything's not always life or death, right? But either we're on the right side of what the Almighty is calling for us to be on or in, or not. You know, and if we thought about things from that perspective, should I really be doing this? Right? When you're taking the time to think about a thing, that's not emotion, right? Emotion is just I'm just in the moment. I'm just gonna do the thing, whatever. Just if you taking the time to think about a thing, that's what's gonna stop you from doing something, right? Well, if you keep on going, then yeah, right. But hopefully you're gonna turn around from that thing, whatever that thing may be, right? But when we look at this, how this thing is described, how this sin, how sin desires to rule over us, that never goes away. It never goes away. The fact that your flesh, your carnal mind, your internal workings in this fleshly body desires to rule over you, and you are in a constant battle of suppressing that thing every day.
Mhm.
Or else, you know, you're in the same situation as Cain here, right?
So, you know, this is interesting because, you know, being that these desires are, you know, people think that going against desire is wrong. Like, you know, that old saying, feel good too.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so people will actually think that crazy trying to tell them to do something that they say, this is natural, man. These are natural things. It's like you're going against your natural self.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just lacking understanding that it's in the flesh.
Yeah.
Desire of the flesh. I'm
Yeah.
sitting there fighting.
Yeah.
Like, ah!
Right.
That's the simple.
And it goes back to another thing we talked about is order, right? Where the Most High is setting up order. That's what the Torah is. Its instructions is order. And you know, me just seeking after my carnal desires is so out of order. There's no order to it. If I just say I just want to do just whatever feels right to me, where's the order in that? Right? It's not. There's none there. Right. When we look and see with Cain, he had no order. If we say that he would just bring in just whatever, where's the order in that? Right? If he would have went, and again, we think about this whole idea of, the instructions that was handed down from the forefathers, from Adam down, Abel knew from somewhere to bring those first fruits. What made him do that? Was it just some innate in him, or did he get some instructions that he was actually following? Right? So we can look at that and kind of deduce the fact that there was some order, and then just from the jump, Cain was outside of that order, right? So when we think about that, bringing that up for us in terms of order, we find those things in the law, statutes, and commandments of the Almighty, right? When we return back to the ways of the Father, he's bringing us out of chaos and into order, right? And we try to go against his order, we end up in the same place where Adam and Hava vanished, Cain vanished, right? He goes out and he's the fruits of his labors. He's out here working and digging in these grounds, and nothing's gonna be fruitful, right? But that's just, we could go look over that's the blessings and cursings. If you do what I say, the fruits of the land is gonna be plenteous for you. But if you don't do what I say, then right, it just puts him right into that area of the curses, which is something that's just a universal thing, right? If you're following after the one who created this thing in the first place, he's gonna bless you, right? If you're moving outside of that, there's going to be curses. Okay, so let us. Does anybody have any? What time is it? Anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments about any of that stuff? Good.
But it's more Esau. You know how Jacob went and studied with Shem and Noah, but Esau chose to go and hunt. Is that following his father for not telling him that he needed to do that?
Um,
Don't ask me where I
I mean, just as a general kind of a thing, right? Just as a general thought process, as a man with a house, with a family, right? You have to dictate that situation, right? If you know a thing to be right or wrong, you should be directing your family in that right way, right? We look back even at Adam and Hava, we saw the blame game going on, right? And people are individuals, of course, right? People are individuals, but at the end of the day, that man is responsible for his family, right? So, I mean, everybody got theirs, right? Everybody got their punishment for the situation. But if we're gonna talk about shouldn't the father had taught his son or whatever, if it was in his house, then he should be leading his house in a particular direction, and then they should only be going in that direction, right? If he's properly doing that. But we see with Israel, how they had all kinds of things going on, and at the end of the day, people are individuals, right? People are individuals at the end of the day. But if you want to talk about how things should be, that father should be directing. He should be directing that house. Yeah, but look at where look at where what was most important to him, right? He obviously wasn't. He didn't care about the birthright. He didn't care about it. It was more important for him to feed his carnal mind. Is that because I mean, again, there's a fine line. I can show my son how I want for him to go, but I can't make him be something within his own self. I can't lead his desires. I can't blame Esau's father for Esau's desires, right? He had his own desires. That's what he was. But I'm just making a general statement. I'm going to lead my family in a particular direction. But even at that, I can't dictate what your desire is going to be as my child. I can tell you what's right and where you should be going, but it's not my fault after I do all that I can do that you reject it and your desires is still for carnality, and I'm pointing you in another direction, right? So even if we look at it like that and say, well, he's the father of the house, but people are still individuals and still able to make their own decisions.
I don't know, I was just going to add to that, when Moses was going that last plea to Israel as they were going into, into the land, and he was adamant explaining why they were taken through that process of the desert, because like God wanted to see their hearts and see how he wanted to see what's in their heart, regardless of what he's telling them to do and how to follow these laws and commands. He wanted to see if how pure their heart was to want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's really what your life experience really just is. It's just the Most High walking you through the wilderness, right? He's gonna give you the answers. He's gonna show you the way, and then he's gonna send you off into the wilderness, and you're gonna be tried in the wilderness, and see what happens on the other side. See what happens.
He said that's don't do this. It's like having a real life cheat sheet. Don't do this. It's going to be a trap for you. Even when I just got to the part where he's talking about the king, they wanted the king. He's like, you know what, you're the king, but tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the problem with that? Israel wanted to be like the other nations. Israel wanted to step away from that tree of life and get some of that other knowledge inordinately. Okay, so does anybody have any last thoughts or questions or comments before we are done talking about this here? That's fine. Oh my goodness. Okay. That being said, we will go ahead and be done with this for now.